Excellent Louis impersonation, Brad. Appreciate that. Another heavy week, huh? This might be, how do you say, unpopular opinion, what I'm about to say today. Some of y'all know me. It's not my style nor is it the style of the church, I feel, to tell anyone what they should believe, what they should be feeling about things, how they should be feeling, how they should be expressing those feelings as strong and maybe as warranted as some of them are. But here we are, just off the heels of another shooting in Minnesota. We have another one in Colorado, and of course we have another one in Utah. Very conservative political commentator, Charlie Kirk, most of you know, speaking at a public event, right in the middle of a sentence where he was referring to gun violence, was shot and killed. We may disagree, and I did, with most, if not all, of what that man had to say and how he presented what he had to say. But the violence against him, against anyone, is not something that I can celebrate or just shrug off while claiming to be a person of faith, much less a pastor in principle. So nothing I'm about to say is going to be new. I'm sure a lot of people are talking about this in some form or another around the country this morning. So I don't claim to have anything novel to say here. But the dialogue that I have seen surrounding this, and many of you I know have seen, if not engaged in as well, has been, shall we say, mostly concerning. And I know we all have mixed emotions about what happened this week and what has led up to the events that happened this week. We are living in a moment of political, not just political, just violence in general. It's become common. The divisions in our culture have become more sharp. With every disagreement and with every event like this week, it seems like it just kind of nudges us further and further, closer and closer into anger, into contempt, and into retaliation. And in this moment, I couldn't help but bring up Romans 12. And I want to speak Paul's words again here. Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Never avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Bless those who persecute you. That sounds familiar, yeah? Pretty famous rabbi once said that, I believe. It echoes Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Blessing is not just ignoring the harm. It's certainly not approving of it. But it means to actively will the good of the other. It is the refusal to mirror that hatred. And as I said, that might be unpopular opinion. And that, my friends, is the point. That phrase that I'm sure a lot of you kind of winced during the reading trips a lot of us up. Leave room for the wrath of God. God isn't actually mentioned in that sentence in that original language. It's just in that next sentence where Paul is quoting Deuteronomy that God is mentioned. So that's where a lot of the translations you will see will say God's wrath or divine wrath. But they're actually not. They might be connected, but it's not there. I like to think of it more as saying this. And I'm not saying Paul was saying this. I'm saying this is what we could do with it, okay? How about this? Justice is mine. I will set things right. If we hear wrath as this divine temper tantrum, we still miss the point there. God's wrath is not lashing out. It's what happens when we persist in injustice. Wrath is not divine vengeance. It is a consequence of saying no to God's yes. Wrath is God's consent to human freedom, even when we use that freedom destructively and hatefully. And so when Paul says, leave room for the wrath, he isn't telling us that God's going to get revenge on our behalf. In fact, it's not payback at all. It's actually heartbreak. It's divine heartbreak. This week, Charlie Kirk became a victim. I honestly don't even want to use that word, but he was. He was a victim of his own worldview. Some of his own views that he very proudly and publicly espoused. But violence breeds more violence, even if it is just implied. Others, this week I've heard, have even implied that what happened was God's wrath on Mr. Kirk for the views he espoused. I want to be clear about that. I don't think that's what was going on. Death is not the will of God. Harm and violence, not the will of God, as far as I see it. That's not divine punishment. God's wrath is not God's revenge, it's God's heartbreak. God's wrath is the cry of the mom whose children are caught in the cycle of harm. I thought of Mamie Till and Emmett Till. God's wrath is being the open casket, showing the world what happened to her son. Saying, I don't have a minute to hate, though, but I'm going to pursue justice for the rest of my life. That to me is God's wrath. Loving wrath in action. God's dream is not for us to reap this whirlwind, this cycle of violence forever, but to step out of the cycle entirely and to overcome evil with good. Wrath is the ache in our heart. It's the ache of the universe when love is mocked, when truth is twisted, when life is thrown away. Wrath is not about crushing our enemies. It's God's refusal to be indifferent to the world's pain, to our pain. It's not the fire of damnation. It's the fire of yearning that says, you were made for more than this. More than this. And if we can taste that wrath, if we can feel that divine heartbreak, maybe, just maybe, we'll actually be moved enough to join God's own work of healing. Maybe we'll find the strength not to repay evil with evil, but to overcome evil with good, because that does take more strength. God does not coerce or smite, but God beckons all of creation towards love. And when we reject that invitation, we experience the pain, we experience the alienation, we experience all this breakdown that follows. It's not God's anger. It's the world unraveling when we choose death over life. And I take that verse to be saying this: giving space for God's grief and God's justice, let us lure one another towards restoration, having room to work, holding that room to work, rather than closing off the future with your own retaliation. That's what I see in that verse. Because evil, as we know, is very, very seductive. Evil is seductive. It wants to shape you into that image. It wants to trap you into that cycle of harm. It wants to turn you into everything that you hate. Paul insists there's another way. And I tend to believe him. Sue me. We don't overcome evil without eviling evil. We overcome evil with good. We overcome evil with good. These words are hard to hear when violence is so very close to home. When shootings continue to make headlines, when neighbors shout each other down, when we wonder if things are getting worse, or we wonder if we are next. And yet, this is exactly when we need these words. Our lives, as much as we try to separate them, to separate ourselves or to separate others, our lives are interconnected. We share one another's sufferings. We share in each other's hatreds. And violence spreads through that network, spreads through that interconnectedness like a contagion. And my friends, our country is sick with it. Our country is sick. We have been infected, and we have been for some time. In many ways, we are actually the carrier. We are actually the pathogen of this. America has become a culture that believes violence is the way to resolve conflict. We see it in our entertainment, we see it in our politics, we see it in our rhetoric, and we see it in, yes, our religion. It's everywhere. So what are we going to do? Pray? For what? For who? We're going to vote? When? Some coming up? Sure. But for who? Who's going to make a difference? We're going to lobby? For what? With what resources? We're going to boycott? Why? What good does it do? How? I feel that. I do. These are all action items, yes. But what are we doing? What are they doing? It seems like we are so deep, so entrenched into this, that there just doesn't seem like an easy way out, if there seems like there's one at all. So do we vote? Yeah. Do we protest? Yeah, of course. Do we lobby? Yeah. We do all these things. Do we pray? Yeah. I still believe in that. These aren't ways to control. These aren't ways to control and take back control of a nation, or to control God and God's response to the world and to our nation and our violence. These are ways of opening ourselves All of these are ways of opening ourselves to the world and to present new possibilities. I believe prayer changes the condition of the world. I believe voting changes the condition of the world. I believe that protesting changes the conditions of the world. If not only us and our position and our space that we hold within the world, but it still changed it, didn't it? Because we're all interconnected. We can help change there. It all matters, but it's not enough. It all matters, but it's not enough, because any of that, any prayer, any of this without action is a way of actually just abandoning the world to its fate. And we all, each of us, have way too much to offer to abandon the world, to abandon one another in this. I don't think Paul would settle for that. I'm not going to settle for that either. He calls for concrete steps, feeding enemies, caring for neighbors, breaking that cycle of harm. And for us, that means not only lamenting the violence that we see, but working to prevent it. Building communities that do not glorify violence, but teach resolution and peace. Becoming the people who refuse vengeance, but demand justice be done. Demanding it. This is praying not just with our voice, not just with our hands and our feet. This is with our hearts. This is what we are bringing to the world. We must believe. We must hope that the story isn't over. That we can still co-create a future here with God that is less violent, more compassionate, more just. Do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. This is not, in my estimation, just a naive optimism. This is the hard, courageous, holy work of what we call discipleship. It's looking at that space within our own hearts, and no matter what we see there, confronting it and stepping out and showing and acting a better way. That way is there within each of us. That way is there. To bless and to not curse, to refuse vengeance, to trust God's work of justice even when we can't see it, and maybe even when we don't really deep down want to. We act on it anyways. To feed, to pray, to act, and to build those communities of peace. This is how we overcome, friends. This is how we overcome. This is how we live as followers of Jesus in a broken and violent world. This is where we actually do mourn the violence that our culture and its individuals have inflicted. We mourn what has happened this week, yes. But this is also where we do prove Charlie Kirk wrong. This is where we prove him wrong. That we can move past this without resorting to gunning each other down, shouting over each other, stomping on each other when we're down. We can move past this without that. We can move past this at our schools. We can move past this at our workplaces. We can move past this in our country. We can move past this in our churches. Do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Let's keep trying to live that out. Amen.